Good day everyone, and today we will be learning how to download the Raspberry Pi Imager, which will allow us to set up our SD card for use in our Raspberry Pi. So to get started with this, you will need to either obtain the link for the Raspberry Pi Imager from the website or from a teacher that may give you this link. For our case, we are given the link, so I will go into this that says software download for PC, as I'm a PC user, and I'll click on this. It'll bring me to this page here where I have the option to download it. So I'll click download. So now it's going to say Google Drive can't scan this file for viruses. This file is executable and may harm your computer. So we will choose the option that says download anyways. You shouldn't always do this, but we know that this file is clean, so we're going to download it. And then once downloaded, we'll click open file. So it says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? I will say yes. And then you get the welcome prompt from Raspberry Pi Imager Setup. So we go ahead and click install, let it run on our computer, and we click finish. So once that finishes, the Raspberry Pi Imager icon will pop up. It says there's a newer version of Imager available. Would you like to download it? And so we have the best possible version on our computer. We will say yes. And then it brings us to the Raspberry Pi website. So we come down and click download for Windows. So we then complete the same process, open file. Yes, you would like to let it make changes, and we need to ensure that the old one is closed so that it allows a new one to install on our computer. We select our language, which is English, click OK. The previous version of Raspberry Pi Imager was found that needs to be uninstalled first, so we'll uninstall this to allow the new one to install. So it says welcome to Raspberry Pi Imager Setup Wizard. You follow the prompts, you accept the agreement, next. You download it to your file. You can choose to create a desktop shortcut, which I will choose, so it shows up on my desktop. Click next and let it run. I click finish, so it's finished downloading. So then this page will prompt, which is the Raspberry Pi Imager. So now to download to your micro SD card or scan to it, you will need to choose your device. So our device is going to be the Raspberry Pi 4. The operating system is a 32-bit. And our storage. So when our micro SD card is in, it'll show up here. We click that. We then click next, which will allow you to write on your micro SD card everything you need. And this usually takes about 12 to 14 minutes to completely write the code onto your micro SD card, so you can then place it into your Pi to utilize as a operating system. So to set our Raspberry Pi up to our desktop monitor, we will need a few things, starting with the Raspberry Pi. So first thing you're going to do is take your micro SD card and slide it into the micro SD card slot, which is down here. So that's it, slid in there. You're going to need a mouse. So the mouse is going to go into one of these USB ports. So slide that in there. The next thing you're going to need will be a keyboard. So same thing, you take your keyboard USB, slide that into the other port right there like that. The next thing you're going to need is a HDMI cord for it. So this Raspberry Pi has two HDMI ports. So we just slide it into one of those. It's in there, good. And then the last thing you're going to need to power this is your power cord, which goes into your USB-C power cord slot right there. And then you just plug it into the wall, hook up your HDMI connection to your desktop monitor, and you are then good to go. So once we get our Raspberry Pi hooked up to our desktop and everything working, the first thing we want to do is ensure that it is connected to the internet. So as you can see here, I have a stable internet connection for my Raspberry Pi. The next thing I want to do is configure the Raspberry Pi. So we would do this by coming over to the Raspberry Pi logo, clicking on it. You then run down to Preferences and come out to the Preferences menu and choose Raspberry Pi Configuration. Once you get to configuration, you're going to go to the Interfaces menu and make sure that everything is toggled on. We do this to make sure that we have access and utilization of everything the Raspberry Pi has to offer. So once we ensure that these are toggled on, we can then reboot the Raspberry Pi because it's going to prompt for that. And then we can come back to the Raspberry Pi homepage on the desktop and go to the terminal. The terminal is where we'll enter codes to unlock things or download things to our Raspberry Pi. So as we're going to see in this next video I'm going to show, I will download the fritzing, the GIMP, screenshot, and update by doing the sudo app install and then you enter the name. So for my examples, I will be using sudo apt-get install GIMP, sudo apt-get install GNOME screenshot, sudo apt-get update, and the last one will be sudo apt-get install fritzing. And you need to make sure these are typed in correctly so that the Raspberry Pi knows what it's reading. So I'll show you the video here on how to download these. So as you can see, I'm typing in sudo apt-get install fritzing. It then runs the code and prompts you to say yes or no if you'd like to continue. You say yes or why. And then it runs the rest of the package until completed. That will be it for today's tutorial on how to set up your micro SD card and format some data onto your Raspberry Pi. Thanks for tuning in.